We are in January and it is really, really cold outside. So in the spirit of healthy eating and also keeping warm, I will be doing a lovely soup with lentils, and it's going to be a Mediterranean one, of course. Julie just had a go at me because apparently I've been feeding her too much. And she just said to me, well, can we just have smaller portions?
It's got nothing to do with all of the chocolate biscuits I've eaten in the last 24 hours. Nothing to do with that whatsoever.
No, nothing at all. Somehow I always get blamed for it. So I said to her, well, I'm doing quite a lot actually. I'm doing a big batch because whenever I cook lentils or beans or anything like that, I always like to cook a lot. Then I put the rest in the fridge and I have it for lunch. And it's really lovely. So I'm starting by chopping an onion, a large onion, as I'm doing a lot. But I'll give you the measures and then you can adjust it depending on how much you want to do. I'm using a cast iron iron today because...
cast iron iron?
Cast iron pan, because I will be cooking this for a little while. So, but you can also use a normal pan. It doesn't have to be cast iron. And I'll start by adding the onions. Here I've also got some carrots which I've really scrubbed well, so I'm going to keep the skin, and I'm going to look always the most attractive of things, but it's really healthy as there's plenty of fibre. And again, in the spirit of healthy eating, I'm going to keep it on. And just to be different, because this is going to cook for a while, I'm leaving them whole and doing little circles like this. But
then you're not leaving them whole then, are you?
No, I'm not leaving them whole. I'm cutting them in little pieces, but I'm not half
in them. Chunks. He's cut them in chunks and
chunks, yes.
Not two tiny slices. That's what he's getting at, I think.
So I've got here a couple of sticks of celery, and like I did with the carrots, I've already removed that annoying peel from them so that you don't choke when you're eating them. But again, I'll do them in relatively big pieces, and I've kept a couple of the leaves because I think they're good to look at, and also they will add a little flavour, but entirely up to you really. And of course they've all been washed. There we go. 3 cloves of garlic. I've already removed the skin as they are a little bit old, and so I decided to take the skin off.
How attractive you make this dish sound. Old garlic.
Yes.
Monkey old carrot with the skin on.
If it was fresh, I would have left the skin on, but as it is a little bit old now, I removed the skin, so in they go.
We know what you're getting at.
Yeah. And one more ingredient for the time being, is not the last ingredient, just for the time being, is a red bell pepper. But always remember to carefully remove all of the seeds, and this white, I haven't got the most helpful knife, actually not use this one either, here, paring knife. This white stuff needs to come off as well.
I call it the pith. I'm not sure if that's what it's supposed to be called, but...
Because it can be really bitter. No, it is very bitter, not never mind that can be. So that can go in the bin. If we had chickens, but we don't. We did have chickens once. They could have it.
Don't tell me that, it might make me cry.
The fox ate them.
No, don't tell them that.
One day I went in the garden early thing in the morning. They used to live in a metal cage, properly
just at night time, and the rest of the day they were free roaming around the garden.
And one morning I went downstairs, as I'm always the first one to get up, made a cup of tea, and I noticed all of this...
You were going to London, darling, so you were up at stupid o'clock.
Yeah, actually I was. And
He's noticed, all suited and booted.
I noticed all of these feathers in the garden, and I immediately knew what happened, poor things. And do you want to say the rest of the story, Julie?
No, it's too sad.
I'll carry on.
He came up and woke me up telling me what had happened, and I was really upset.
Yes, I remember. I went to London, and then I went on the train and went off, and Julie and my oldest son, Alessandro, this is a few years ago now.
A lot of years ago.
They went and retrieved the leftover of the chicken.
Oh, bless.
And I think the fox ate the head.
Oh, don't go into details when you're cooking. It sounds horrible.
It's life, isn't it? And
right, let's just amend that. The fox ate certain parts of the chicken.
The head. And they buried them. Actually, one was completely dismantled, I think.
Well,
and
may I point out, my husband said one of them has completely disappeared. And Alessandro come up and it was like, Mum, it's laying in the middle of the grass. So somehow we'd missed it.
But I both think we had two, Sparta and China. I don't remember which one, but Anyway, they buried them in the garden. They gave them a proper burial. And
Yeah,
everything.
we'd buried them.
I
yeah.
wasn't there. I didn't. Oh, you were right. I must have been in London. Then went to bed the following day to find that the fox had returned and dug the chicken, the dead chicken, of course. I don't remember if it was Sparta or China, but it doesn't make any difference to you. And finished the meal. And the following morning, when Julie went out to find all the bones absolutely perfectly.
And what was worse, Alessandro came wandering down the garden. He'd literally got a chicken carcass, just like if you'd stripped it for your Sunday roast, and it was on the end of a stick.
That wasn't very nice.
And that was all they'd left. It was, terrible
Anyway,
things.
we're doing a vegetarian dish tonight, so let's stop talking about chickens.
It was tragic, may I say.
Yes,
it was devastating,
tragic.
and I don't want them again. It
Shall
was
we
too
go back
sad.
to the meal?
I think we might have to.
So I'm going to put this on the hob in a minute, but before I do so, I'll just mix everything with a wooden spoon so that all of the oil touches all of the vegetables and so on, and then I'll move to the hob. So my vegetables are on the hob, but they've been sizzling now for a good couple of minutes. Temperature is medium-high, number 6, but what I do to get them going faster, I put a lid on, and I leave them now to cook on their own steam for about 5 to 7 minutes. But in the meantime, as we were talking about Sparta in China, I went and got the picture. You didn't know, did you? So I think this is Sparta and this is China.
Yeah.
Sparta in China. And this is a gift which I think your mum did
Jenna
for you.
had it commissioned.
Jenna had it
Friends
commissioned.
of ours, son
So
is an artist,
Yes.
and she gave him a photo and he made that.
And he made
it's
that.
actually really good. It's very lifelike.
it's a very lifeline.
Well done, Chris.
Yes, but well done indeed. But they're no longer with us.
No.
We didn't even get rid of them ourselves.
Oh, sad thing was, not only did the fox have our chickens, but went to the next door neighbour but one and had a load of theirs as
One
well. He had a
shares.
good old night.
And I was particularly annoyed, number one, because obviously Julie was really upset, but also because my free supplies of eggs vanished overnight. So
I don't know
we had to
about a
start
free
buying them.
supply, the amount of...
You know what I mean. Nice Sparta in China for you. In the meantime, I've got a couple of medium-sized potatoes, and I am cutting them in about 1 centimeter slices, like this, first. And again, just like I did with the carrots, I've given them a good scrub, and I'm keeping the skin, because it's very, very good for you, full of fiber. And my aim is to have them roughly the same size, so that when the potatoes cook, they all cook at the same time. So I pick them up and I cut them in little soldiers like this, without chopping my hand, hopefully, like so. 1 and 2. And then I'll go along and I'll do little cubes. You don't need to get your ruler out, but broadly similar size, like this. Now let's talk about lentils. These are green lentils which I've soaked overnight for 12 hours, and I have changed the water a couple of times. They weighed 300 grams when they were dry. I always find it fascinating how much they grow. I weighed them earlier. They weigh 700 grams now soaked. So if you were to buy lentils which are in a tin, I wouldn't recommend. It's one of the things that I would never purchase in a tin, but if you do, by all means do that. Make sure that you match the measurements. So 700 grams of soaked lentils, or 300 grams when they're dry. So I'm going to pour this straight into the pan now. So the vegetables have been sizzling now for a good 7 minutes, and here comes the lentils. So these are not cooked, but they have had a good soaking. And I'm going to give them a good mix with all my vegetables so that they all blend together. And before I go any further, I'm going to add a tiny little amount of white wine vinegar. Not a lot, maybe like a half of the teaspoon, like so. So I've raised the temperature and I'll mix it for about a minute so that the vinegar evaporates.
It's amazing how much smell that gives off, isn't it?
And I'm going to add also a couple of bay leaves, fresh bay leaves from our garden, Lisa. Followed by some salt. A couple of these little spoons is the equivalent of a teaspoon. These are spices, and I'll start with a teaspoon of cumin, and in it goes, like so. I've got the last of paprika. We need to buy some more, Julie. And again, it's roughly 1 teaspoon. And this is sweet paprika, but you can also use smoked paprika if you like. And the last spice is going to be some turmeric. but I'm not going to use a full teaspoon. I will go for half, just a little like that.
Are you sure we haven't got any paprika? It was just one of those times when you've looked in the cupboard but you haven't looked properly. You've done a man look.
Well, I opened the cupboard and it wasn't there, so I haven't really looked.
You mean it didn't throw itself at you?
No, it didn't.
I'll have a look in a moment.
Anyway, I'll mix this together and I'll leave it to now simmer for about a couple of minutes. So Julie, did you find any paprika?
No, dear, I didn't. On this particular occasion, this one occasion ever possibly, you were right. There's no more left.
There you go.
Not
Not the whole world now. I did look. Tin of cherry tomatoes, and I'm going to put them in as they are with the hope that they will disintegrate eventually. So just wait. These are Italian cherry tomatoes, by the way, but you can also use the tomatoes, what they call chopped, already chopped.
The plum ones, or chopped ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if we were to use these cherry tomatoes, the Italian cherry tomatoes, they are very sweet, which are ideal for this recipe. Anyway, regardless of what you use, make sure that you mix them in properly. And at the moment, if you follow the same instructions as these, the predominant ingredient you will be able to smell is the cumin, funnily enough. The vinegar is all evaporated.
Actually, I think
already.
I've got a whiff of bay leaf.
And after the tomatoes, I'm going to add all of my potatoes, like so.
I'm presuming some water's coming.
Yep. And Julie's right, there is some water coming, and I'll start by cleaning my little jug first, or can. Now, if you can come inside, Julie, please. The amount of water you need to add must be enough for you to cover absolutely everything, and then leave a good inch, or 2 to 3 centimeters above the potatoes or the last vegetable, like this. That's perfect. And 10 is on maximum. And it's going to take a little while to reach the boil as the water was cold from the tap. I always like to add cold water when I'm cooking with raw lentils or beans, because if you put hot boiling water, they could split and you could damage them. So like this, just a few more minutes. And I'll wait until it reaches the boil, and then I'll tell you what I'll do next. Which is now, and I put the lid on, by the way, so that it comes to the boil quicker. And what I'll do next, I will add a little pepper, but not because you need to add it now, it's only because I forgot to do it earlier. So incredibly useful, but the amount is up to you to taste. I'll put some now and maybe some at the end. The same apply with the salt. I didn't put a lot of salt, you can always add salt later. This is parsley, so I'm going to be adding a nice and generous handful like this of parsley. We keep this in the freezer, and again I'll put some in now and some later when it's cooked. So I'll give everything one final mix. I'll put the lid on again. I'll turn the temperature down onto medium-low, number 4 to start with. I might turn it down onto number 3 eventually. And I'll leave it to cook nice and slow for about 45 minutes. I'm not going to touch it, I'll leave it completely on its own. And this is going to be a lovely dish in a cold day. I mentioned that at the beginning, especially if, like Julie and I, you would have gone for a long walk this morning.
Went for 5 miles.
5 miles, yes, and I haven't mentioned it yet, but I very just recently launched a new channel, and it's called La Vita Variety, and that is about everything else rather than cooking. I like doing lots of DIY jobs and so on, and also anything outside the kitchen. And we did record our first video today when we went for a walk. And if you want to see the channel, have a look up here, and then you will be able to see the channel and also our first video. And you will be quite interesting to see Julie's almighty fall in the mud.
Yeah. So I had my first fall of 2025.
First fall of 2025. And as I said to you before, it's a little bit about everything, including some storytelling, some DIY, and potentially also helping with some budgeting and so on, a way to diversify. Have a look and see what you think. So I'll see you in about 45 minutes. And everything is ready, and in terms of cooking time, after 45 minutes I lifted the lid, and it was a little bit more watery than I would have wanted. So I removed the lid and let it cook for a further 15 minutes, but without the lid on, and it looks absolutely wonderful. Also the lentils were still a little bit crunchy, so it depends on what you're using, you'll have to judge it, but this is absolutely perfect and they look really lovely. And I'm going to do a portion, and as I often say, always start with the solid first, and then you can add the liquid at the end. So I'll do a little portion for Julie and a big portion for me. Is that right, Julie?
Yeah.
Sound a little
There's
liquid.
only so many beans and lentils and stuff I can eat in one
Oh, I
portion.
love them. Now, as you cook this, you can drop any of the spices like the turmeric, the paprika, or the cumin if you wish, because they are very optional and that's something that I've added to give a little bit more of a Mediterranean spice. However, two ingredients that are compulsory if you're doing this, actually three in my view, but I'll let you off with two. Parmesan cheese, that is the one I'll let you off, but indeed compulsory olive oil and additional parsley. And I'll do the olive oil first because believe it or not, actually it does add a tremendous flavor to food when it's hot, like so.
I mean when the olive oil is fresh and the food is hot.
Indeed. Now believe me, this is going to transform your meal. Additional parsley on top, and in my case, a little Parmesan cheese. This is a very much a personal choice, but I absolutely love it. Not a lot, just enough to give it additional flavor. And of course, before you take your first spoonful, mix everything together. The smell coming up is really lovely. I'll try a little, I want to get a potato in there as well. There. It's been cooling down for about 5 minutes now, so it should not be too bad, but still very hot. It's lovely. The combination of the spices, especially the cumin, the paprika and the turmeric, they are a lovely addition to this dish and delicious, warming and beautiful. Buon appetito, arrivederci and grazie. Ciao ciao.